Okay, everyone, it's the last chapter, chapter 13. He woke up Saturday morning with a dull headache. It was still early, but he got up. He wanted to do the milking. His father had done it ever since Thursday night, but he wanted to go back to it, somehow to make things normal again. He shut PT in the shed, and the dog's whimpering reminded him of Maybelle and made his headache worse. But he couldn't have PT yapping at Miss Bessie while he tried to milk her. No one was awake when he brought the milk in to put it away, so he poured a warm glass for himself and got a couple of pieces of bread. He wanted his paints back, and he decided to go see if he could find them. He let PT out of the shed and gave him half a piece of bread. It was a beautiful morning. Early wildflowers were dotting the green of the fields, and the sky was clean and blue. The creek was well below the bank and seemed less terrifying than before. A large branch was washed up onto the bank. He hauled it up in the narrowest place and laid it down. He stepped on it and it seemed firm, so he crossed on it, foot over foot, to the other side, grabbing a smaller branch which grew out to keep his balance. There was no sign of his paints. He landed slightly upstream from Terabithia, if it was still Terabithia. If it could be entered across a branch instead of swung into, PT was left crying on the other side. The dog took courage and paddled across the stream. The current carried him past Jess, but he made it safely to the other side. They went into the castle stronghold. It was damp and dark, but there was no evidence there to suggest that the queen had died. He felt the need to do something fitting, but Leslie wasn't here to tell him what it was. The anger which he had possessed yesterday flared up again. Leslie, I'm just a dumb dodo, and you know it. What am I supposed to do? The coldness inside of him had moved upward into his throat, constricting it. He swallowed several times. It occurred to him that he probably had cancer of the throat. Wasn't that one of the 7 deadly signs? Difficulty in swallowing? Leslie, were you scared? Did you know you were dying? Were you scared like me? And he pictured Leslie being sucked under the water. Come on, PT, he said loudly. We must make a funeral wreath for the queen. He sat in the clear space between the bank and the first line of the trees and bent a pine bow in a circle, tying it with a piece of wet string from the castle. It looked cold and green. He put it down in front of him. A cardinal flew down to the bank, cocked its brilliant head, and seemed to stare at the wreath. PT let out a growl, which sounded more like a purr. The bird stopped about a moment more, then flew away. It was a sign from the spirits, Jess said quietly. We made a worthy offering. He walked slowly as part of a great procession, though only the puppy could be seen, slowly forward, carrying the queen's wreath to the sacred grove. He forced himself deep into the dark center of the grove and kneeling on the ground. Father, unto thy hands I commend her spirit. He knew Leslie would have liked those words, and he laid down the wreath. The solemn procession wound its way through the sacred grove back towards the castle. A single bird followed them in the sky. Help, Jessie, help me! A scream shattered the quietness. Jess raced to the sound of Maybelle's cry. She had gotten halfway across on the tree bridge and now stood there grabbing the branches, terrified to move forward or backwards. Okay, Maybelle, hold still, I'll get you. He was not sure the branch would hold the weight of both of them. He looked down at the water. It was low enough for him to walk across, but it was still swift. He inched out until he was close enough to touch her. Okay, he said, now back up. I can't. I'm right here, Maybelle. You think I'm going to let you fall? He put his hand out. Hold on to me and slide sideways. She let go with her left hand for a moment, and then grabbed the branch. I'm scared, Jessie. I'm too scared. Of course you're scared. Anyone be scared. You just have to trust me, okay? I won't let you fall, Maybelle. I promised. She nodded and looked at him. Okay now. It's not fair. Just slide your right foot a little, then bring your left foot up close. I forgot which is my right. The front one, he said patiently. The one closest to home. She nodded and moved her right foot. Now, just let go of the branch with your other hand and hold tight onto me. She let go of the branch and squeezed his hand. Good, you're doing great. Now slide a little more. She swayed but didn't scream. Great, fine, you're all right. The same quiet, assuring voice of the paramedics on the emergency show. Okay, a little more now. with her right foot when her right foot came to the last part of the branch, which rested on the bank, she fell forward, pulling him down. Watch it, Maybelle! He was off balance, but didn't fall into the stream. But with his chest, Maybelle's legs, he got her off the branch. There's a picture. Helping his little sister. What are you trying to do, girl? Kill me? She shook her head. I know, I swore in the Bible not to follow you, but I woke up this morning and you were gone. I had to do some things. I just wanted to find you so you wouldn't be lonesome. She hung her head, but I got scared. He pulled himself around until he was sitting beside her. They watched P.T. swimming across the stream. He climbed out well below the apple tree and came running back. Everybody gets scared sometimes, Maybelle. You don't have to be ashamed. Everybody gets scared. P.T.'s not scared, and he even saw Leslie. It's not the same for dogs. It's like the smarter you are, the more things can scare you. She looked at him. But you weren't scared? Maybelle, I was shaking like jello. I was so scared. You're just saying that. He laughed. He couldn't help being glad that she didn't believe him. Let's go eat. And he let her beat him to the house. When he walked into the basement classroom, he saw Miss Myers had already had Leslie's desk taken out from the front of the room. Of course, by Monday, Jess knew, but still, at the bus stop, he looked up, half expecting to see her running across the field. Maybe she was already at school, or Bill had dropped her off. But he knew. Her desk was no longer there. Why were they all in such a rush to get rid of her? He put his head down on his own desk. His whole body was heavy and cold. He could hear the sound of the whispers, but not the words. Not that he wanted to hear the words. He was suddenly ashamed that he thought he might be regarded with respect by the other kids, trying to profit for himself from Leslie's death. I wanted to be the best, the fastest runner, and now I am. He made himself sick. He didn't care what the others said or what they thought, just as long as they left him alone, just as long as they didn't have to talk to them or meet their stares. They all had hated Leslie, except for maybe for Janice. Even after they'd given up trying to make Leslie miserable, they kept on despising her. Mrs. Myers barked the command for the stand for the allegiance. He didn't move. Whether he couldn't or wouldn't, he didn't care. What could she do to him after all? Jesse Aarons, will you step in the hall, please? He raised his body and stumbled out of the room. He thought he heard Gary Fulcher giggle, but he couldn't be sure. He leaned against the wall and waited for Monster Mouth Myers to finish singing. He could hear her giving the class some sort of assignment, and she came out and closed the door. Okay, I don't care, he thought. She came over close to him that he could smell her powder. Jessie, her voice was softer than he had heard it. Jessie, she repeated, I just want to give you my sincere sympathy. Her words were like a card, but the tone was new to him. He looked up into her face, and despite himself, behind her turned-up glasses, Miss Myers' narrow eyes were full of tears. He and Miss Myers standing in the hallway, crying over Leslie Burke. It was so weird, he almost laughed instead. When my husband died, Jessie could hardly imagine Miss Myers ever having a husband. People kept telling me not to cry, kept telling me to forget. Miss Myers' loving mourning. But how could you picture it? But I didn't want to forget. She took her handkerchief out and blew her nose. Excuse me, she said. This morning when I came in, someone had already taken out her desk. I've never had such a student in all my years of teaching. I'll always be grateful. He wanted to comfort her. He wanted to unsay all the things he'd said about her, even unsay the things Leslie had said about her. Lord, so I realized if it's hard for me, how much harder it must be for you. Let's see if we can help each other, shall we? Yes'm, was all I could think of to say. Maybe someday when he was grown, he would write a letter and tell her that Leslie Burke had thought she was a great teacher or something. Leslie wouldn't mind. Miss Myers had helped him already by understanding that he would never forget Leslie. He thought about it all day, how before Leslie came he had been nothing, a stupid, weird kid. It was Leslie who had taken him from the cow pasture into Terabithia and turned him into a king. He had thought that was it. Wasn't the king the best you could be? Now it occurred to him that perhaps Terabithia was like a castle where you came to be knighted. After you stayed for a long while and grew strong, you had to move in. For hadn't Leslie, even in Terabithia, tried to push back the walls of his mind and make him see beyond the shining world, the huge, terrible, and beautiful, and very fragile? Now it was time for him to move out. She wasn't there, so he must go for both of them. It was up to him to pay back the world in beauty and caring, what Leslie had loaned him in vision and strength. As for the terrors ahead, he did not fool himself that they were all behind him. Well, you just have to stand up to your fear and not let it squeeze you, right, Leslie? Right. Bill and Judy came back from Pennsylvania on Wednesday in a U-Haul truck. No one ever stayed long in the old Perkins place. We came to the country for her sake. Now she's gone. They gave Jessie all of Leslie's books and her paint set and 3 pads of watercolor paper. She would want you to have them, Bill said. Jessie and his dad helped them load the U-Haul truck. At noontime, his mother brought down sandwiches and coffee. A little scared the Burks wouldn't want to eat her food, but needing, Jessie knew to do something. At last the truck was filled. The Aarons and the Burks stood around awkwardly. No one wanted to say goodbye. Well, Bill said, if there's anything we've left, you want it, please help yourself. Could I have some lumber on the back porch, Jessie asked. Yes, of course, anything you see. I meant to give you PT, he said, but I can't seem to give him up. It's okay. Leslie would want you to keep him. The next day after school, Jess went down and got the lumber he needed, carrying it a couple of boards at a time to the creek. He put the 2 longest pieces across the narrow place upstream from the crabapple tree. What are you doing, Maybelle? What are you doing, Jess? Maybelle asked. It's a secret, Maybelle. Tell me. Okay, when I finish, okay? I swear on the Bible I won't tell anyone. Not Billie Jean, not Joyce Ann, no, not Mama. Oh, I don't know about Joyce Ann. You might want to tell Joyce Ann sometime. Tell Joyce Ann something that's a secret between you and me? The idea horrified her. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. Her face shrugged. Joyce Ann's nothing but a baby. Well, she wouldn't likely be a queen first off. You'd have to train her and stuff. Queen? Who gets to be queen? I'll explain it when I finish, okay? And when he finished, he put the flowers in her hair and led her across the great bridge into Terabithia, which might look to someone with no magic in him, like a few planks in a nearly dry gully. Shh, he said, look, where? Can you see him? All the Terabithians standing on tiptoe to see you. Me? Shh, yes, there's a rumor going around that a beautiful girl arrived today who might be the queen we've been waiting for. And that's the end. I hope you liked it.